Perfect. So today we're going to be talking about practical assessments. And this is a new feature. And for those of you who have a relationship with one of the customer success managers, you'll probably know they've been banging on about this for a while now. But we really think this is going to be a really cool feature for you guys, because you'll see throughout the webinar, we're going to do some examples, but it's going to be super powerful because it really brings together that theory and practice situation. You can check if people are compliant through this practical element as well. And we're going to dive into some examples to help show how you can convert from like a kind of Microsoft Word version into a practical assessment on EdApp. So today's agenda, we're going to do a quick introduction to show you what practical assessments is, so that you get an idea of how it works. We'll then talk a little bit about how will practical assessments help my team. So kind of 3 main points around that. And then Joyce is going to give us an example from machinery. I'm going to give you guys then an example from hospitality, and then we're going to finish off with an example from retail from George, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what's coming next with practical assessments, and then finish off with those questions. But like I said, if you do have any questions throughout today's session, then feel free to pop them in the chat. We'll either have one of the team members answering them on the chat, or we might answer it live as well, depending on what happens there. Cool. So the first thing that I wanted to do is just play you this short video to do a quick summary of practical assessments. So let's get that going. Awesome. There we go. Always restarts the video and then you awkwardly have to move on. Cool. So as you saw in that video, it's a pretty simple and easy way to, like we said earlier, mix in the theory and the practical side of things. So you can see on the video there that it's just another type of lesson that we have on EdApp. So very similar, where you do your micro lessons, where you go into the authoring tool and you click create lesson. You'll now see that there's like a new style pop up where you can choose the lesson type. So you've got your normal micro lessons, you have discussions and assignments, which are some of our current features. You have virtual classrooms, and then you have practical assessments to finish that off. So let's talk about the difference between the two kind of views. So I want to start with the learner, and then we'll move on to the facilitator after that. So from a learner perspective, they're going to see something like you see this GIF that's moving pretty quick on the left-hand side. So practical assessments acts like another lesson. So when they click on that lesson, they'll see a QR code pop up like you have on the screen now. And that QR code is actually specific and unique to that person, and also the practical assessment that it's associated with. So the QR code is intended to make it easier for the next part of the step, which is to do with the facilitator. So the QR code is there intended that whoever is given the facilitator role, so what that means is they're able to kind of carry out the practical assessment from whether that be a manager standpoint or a team lead standpoint. They're basically given a role on EdApp called facilitator. And this can be enabled by going into the user profile and down to that permissions and roles section, and then you just tick them as a facilitator, and that gives them access to that facilitate tab that you see in your admin portal. So when they have that role, what they'll be able to do is either two things to get to the same kind of destination. So the first thing they can do is just scan the QR code that the learner pulls up for them. And you just basically open your camera app, you scan the QR code, and it will then take them to the admin portal on their phone or their iPad or whatever they're on, and have them log into the admin portal. So we've made the admin portal reactive to mobile. So it means that you can do these kind of like checklists and these kind of practical assessments on an iPad or a mobile, whatever you want to do. Obviously, it's also available on desktop if they prefer that, but it just means that if you want to do this, for example, in a shop or while you're going between meetings, then it's something that you can definitely do. So that's the first way to get to the learner's practical assessment form. Or the second way is by them logging into the admin portal. They just navigate to the facilitate tab, click on practical assessments, and then they'll be able to find the learner's name by just typing it in, and they can pull up the practical assessment. So the assessment itself looks a bit like this screenshot that you can see on the right hand side. So we have a template builder that Joyce is going to take us through a little bit later in today's session. But what you are able to do is build out your own form. Is very, very flexible tool, however you see fit. And that form is then able to, the facilitator is able to go through that form, fill out any bits that are necessary, and then it comes to the end of the assessment where the facilitator chooses whether that person has passed or failed. In terms of the pass or fail, if they pass, it then obviously ticks off that lesson as passed on the learner's app. And if they fail, it shows us try again on the learner's app, so they can give it another go. And the great thing about this form is it kind of like records all the information around the dates that it was done, the times that it was done, the user's name, the facilitator's name. So all of that is tracked automatically in EdApp. Fabulous. So let's then quickly just move on to how practical assessments help my team. So 3 main points on this slide. So the first one is ditch the written forms. So the whole reason behind us really making practical assessment was from feedback from you guys, our customers. We understood from you that a lot of this stuff where you did a practical element was done on thousands of sheets of paper. You'd file it somewhere, you'd lose it probably. It was really hard to find. If anything did come up where you had to kind of regather that information. So that's kind of where this idea stemmed from of being able to just ditch the written forms and have it kind of all in one place to make it much simpler for you guys to find. The second part of that as well, which I've mentioned a couple of times before, is putting the theory to the test. So it's all well and good having your micro lessons on like fire safety, for example, but is that person actually going to be able to be compliant and react well in a situation if they need to put that theory into practice? So that's why we have something like practical assessments, to be able to have you test them on these kind of things, give them the final sign off in that way. So for example, if you're using like on-site a forklift, what you want to make sure is that they learn how to use the forklift through the micro learning, but then they actually do the practical part, so you know that they're safe and they're not going to injure themselves while on the site. So that's really about putting that theory to the test. And then the last thing that is really key to practical assessments is it means all your learning is in one place. So it's kind of similar with the ditching the written forms. Your learners are going to know anytime that they want to do anything to do with training or learning, EdApp is the place to go. They don't need to jump between multiple different platforms. And as well, for you guys as admins, it just makes that whole time between pulling stuff from different systems much, much shorter, because you can get it all in one place. Cool. So enough of me waffling. I'm actually going to now hand over to Joyce, who is going to take us through the machinery example of practical assessments.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Luce. Let me just share my screen now. All right. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yeah, we can. I can just see that I think someone's may have accidentally raised their hand, but if you do have any questions, feel free to just pop that in the chat, and Joyce or one of us will be able to answer that as we go through.
Brilliant. Awesome. So just a quick overview. So you would log in through admin.edapp.com. Content authors who have the right permissions can log in, as well as the admin. You would create a standard course, and then you would create a lesson within a course. I might just click into this one as a little base. We're going to build a haul truck verification of competency today. And you can see I've already pre-built some stuff, but there's some stuff missing, so that I thought I would fill in for you guys. All right, so as an overview, this is just where you have your general form, and you can start building things by dragging and dropping the fields into here, and then it would open up with your display. And on the right, you see just a random haul truck verification of competency. I've just pulled in a random example for you guys. I typically see, some truck ones, forklift ones, crane ones, for example. To start off with, I can see that you have some sites, assessor names, some of the standard things to fill in. I have a free text field, which is the haul truck type. I've also seen a really good one used with the select. If you already have a lot of those truck types already preloaded, you might be able to create that here. So here's another example. I might do haul truck type. And then you can do data as well and start putting in the types of haul trucks that you have. So for example, might have a 785, might have a 789. And then this is kind of what it would look like. You can choose between the types of haul trucks. Just with forms, I guess, if you have things pre-filled in for people, it usually makes it a lot easier for the facilitator to actually go through the assessment rather than type it themselves and create typos. So that's just one there. I do see a trainee and assessor name often on the Word doc as well. That might not be necessary if the assessor happens to be also the facilitator and you already have the custom fields put in already. So I will actually show you what that looks like. So you can see the assessor is already pre-filled in here at the top when you export those details. So it might not be necessary, but if you want, you can still input a text field, and then you might have assessor there. It might also be a different assessor from the facilitator. So you can do that as well, assessor if different to facilitator. Wunderbar. All right, let's go to lesson details. So lesson details, you've got, your standard name is per license. Again, can use a text fields. You've got your license expiry date. Let's input a issue date here. A really good one is the date one. So I might do day. I might change the label to license issue date. And then you can have your month, day, year. If you want, you can always keep those hidden as well. And one thing to note again here is you can always require validation. So you must require them to put a day, month here before they can submit the form to, which might be helpful for you guys. Cool. So if I save that there, you can see that's populated there. Awesome. So now down to the actual juicy bits, you've got your pre-operations and stuff like that. Let's actually just build a whole one. So I've seen a lot of people usually go for check boxes. That's just kind of what the PPE one looks like with the protective eyewear and stuff like that. So if I do pre-operations, you can start inputting your data. So you might say, oh, let's just do a simple copy and paste one here, for example. So you've got that there, and then you can also add additional ones. However, let's just delete that one. What's a better one, in my humble opinion, is actually the survey one. So I might input that there. I'll change the label to pre-operations here. And then this is where you can start putting in the data. So values would be your competent and non-competent. I might just put that in there. Not yet competent. That's a bit of a nicer way to say it. And then you can start inputting your ones in the questions here. And it's a matter of just adding in the line and then copying and pasting it from your Word doc. And then what that would look like once you save it is it's all here for you to check off. And that's a nice little line. It creates a nice little table. I often see people put comments across every single section, which is really helpful. You can always create a text area for that. Just drop and drag comments in there. And then save. And then you can always drag it to change it to the field. You can always copy it as well, and duplicate it to create multiple ones if you don't want to keep dragging and dropping it, and if it's the same type of thing there. Awesome. Lastly, I see a lot of last things about assessor feedback and recommendations. There's an extra box here. You can do that here, but also keep in mind that we have an additional feedback field at the end that you can input. So it might not be necessary to actually have that. Same with the competent and not yet competent last final check. That could probably be done just with the passed and the failed there. So again, here, probably not necessary. It's already kind of created for you there. Some people still really like to use the signature form. That's some feedback that we got from users. So it's as simple as putting in a signature, definitely label it so the person knows that the respective person needs to sign it. So in this case, it might be the employee or trainee signature. And then save, and then you're basically done. Some other things that I wanted to point out as well is, I know some people like to upload pictures of licenses, so I might just go back and upload an image upload. I might also just label it, you know, please take a photo of the license, just to make that a bit more clear as well. And then you might want to validate that they have to upload a license in order for that form to be passed. And then once I actually save that, let's go to the top. It's all done. And then if I actually go to the learners portal, I can kind of show you what that might look like. Let's refresh that. So this is a really good example of a haul trucks entire blended learning course. So you have a blend of your theory assessments where you can learn about haul trucks, and then you might actually have a classroom webinar type thing where you listen to a case study. This can be done live, and then you can also potentially access a pre-recording of that as well. And then you might also have a knowledge check, which is again done through theory. You might also create a pre-assessment survey. And then lastly, this is what you guys were all here for. This is what the practical assessments looks like. You've got the individual unique QR code for that learner. And then as a facilitator, I can scan that. Or if I don't have the learner's QR code handy, I can always log into the admin screen, go to facilitate, go to practical assessments, and then I will find mine here and then start a practical assessment. And then this is where I can, you know, do the drop downs and stuff like that. And then once I submit it, oh, looks like there are some of those data validation ones that we need to have. So it tells me that I need to upload the license here. And yeah, you get the picture. So does anyone have any questions about building a practical assessment for machinery?
We did have a question from Shelby that has asked, does this have the capacity for group assessments?
That's a really great question. I guess we should probably break down what that means. If you want to do the practical assessments as a group, that might not be possible, but you probably want to do it for each individual person in that group. I guess the reason why is you want to record the data against that particular person. We do have a group training feature in beta at the moment. That is where you can actually go through a particular lesson as a group and then mark everyone as having attended that lesson. So there's also that aspect as well. But that's a really good point. If you want to give us a bit more information about that use case, we'd love to know a bit more.
Awesome. Thanks, Joyce. If anyone else does have any more questions, feel free to pop them in the Q&A or the chat, and we will be able to answer those as we go through. Cool. If there's no questions for now, we can move on to the next example. So if I just share my screen with you guys. You see my screen okay? Fabulous. Yep. Cool. So I'm going to be doing a hospitality example. So we're going to have a look at this serving food course just down here. So you can see that in this course, it's all about being kind of like a waiter or waitress. We've got venue layout, taking in order, table maintenance, selling strategies, and then I've also got the practical assessment side of that as well. So let's quickly have a look at the practical assessment. So I've done kind of a bit of a half build on this, and what I've been basing this off is actually a document that I have here, where you can see, oh, that's a bit zoomed in, let me just zoom out of that one a little bit, where you can see kind of what a server assessment would look like. So we've got the name of server, date of server, name of manager, where the restaurant is, and then it talks a little bit about bringing out food and clearing plates as well. So in here, you can see if I just click into edit content, so just looking at the form builder again, we can see that the first thing that we've actually put in is restaurant where assessment was held. And that is because the name of server will actually automatically be recorded by EDAP, because that's the name of the learner as well. Then the date of assessment is also automatically recorded by EDAP, and the person who carried out the assessment, as in the manager, will also be recorded. So this is all things that you guys don't need to add manually, because they will be automatically done. So you can save a bit of time on those 3 questions already. So in terms of the restaurant where it was held, I went ahead and I chose a select one, because I wanted to give them the different options rather than having them type in the free text, because then it fits much nicer with the different capabilities of the restaurant. So they just would choose whichever restaurant it is. And then I went ahead and went for a survey like Joyce was showing us before, just because it fit nicer with my yes, no, whether they could do it or not. So the other one that we wanted to have a look at was the clearing capability. And I think I'm going to go for a survey again, just because it will fit nicely in here. So if I just pull survey in, and this one is going to be called clearing. And then if we move on to our data, I'm just going to copy and paste these questions across. So question 1, this is going to be yes, and then the other value is going to be no. So you saw in Joyce's one that she had competent and not competent. So it's completely up to you what you want to use. It doesn't have to be just 2 values. You can see you can add multiple values. So I've had some clients who use it as like a number scale from 1 to 5. It's kind of up to you guys how you want to do it. So we've got yes, no, we click save, and there's our bringing out food section, there's our clearing section. If you ever wanted to add any more content in here, so if you wanted to add like a bit of text up here to explain how something works, then you can do like that, and that's where that text would sit. The other thing that you can then see on this form that we had before is a feedback section and sign off. So just to bring that across, I'd want to add a signature in here, and I'd say manager sign off, just like that. And I can choose to have that as a required validation. So that means that the manager goes through, chooses all the different elements, then they have to sign it off at the end. Like Joyce mentioned, I have also had a couple of clients who would like to have a manager sign off, but also the employee sign off to say that they were there, they were present when this happened. So you would also be able to put in that signature if you wanted to as well. So this would just be called server sign off. So you know that that's all good. We've got the server sign off, so the manager can just turn their phone around or their iPad around, server can sign it off, manager can sign it off, and then there's this feedback section at the bottom as well. So once I've done that, it would just be pressing save, and then obviously that would be live to the learners. The other options that you could choose, like Joyce mentioned, would be around like select boxes, if you wanted to use those to have different options. So this could be like, did they effectively take customer orders? and we could have data as yes or no. So there's multiple different ways you can lay it out. It just depends on what works for your learners best, what works for your managers or your facilitators best, however that kind of looks for your crew. Cool. So if I click save on that, the changes save and go across to the learners app straight away. So there's no wait time. It would just be coming in here, editing it, and then clicking save, and it pushes it straight to the production for your learners. Awesome. I can see there's a question in the Q&A section from Charlene, which says, it seems to be what iAuditor does, assessing compliance using template, is it not? So for those who don't know, we are actually also part of the safety culture group. We're just EdApp alongside iAuditor. So yes, the tool is kind of similar to iAuditor in the sense of like their inspections using templates and whatnot, but we're way more kind of orientated towards the training side of things. So seeing if that training loop can be closed by using this practical part of the assessment along with the theory, whereas iAuditor is obviously more around like safety checklists, making sure that your inspection's done, that kind of thing. So think of this to be more in line with the training part, so putting that theory into practice. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I think it's, I would say that EdApp's more tied to a specific person when it comes to the data. And then iAuditor is more tied to, it might be an asset or a specific process. And then there's no one specifically involved to check against.
Fabulous. Okay, keep those questions coming in the chat or in the Q&A. So if we don't have any more for now, I'm going to pass over to George to run us through a retail example.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thanks, Lucy. Can you see my screen okay there?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So Lucy and Joyce have done a fantastic job through practical. So I won't go into. So in retail, there are so many different use cases for this. The one I'm using here is really around creating a positive customer experience. You can find this course in our course library for free, so you can import this into your account today. You will need to create the practical assessment, but the actual content is all available for you. So I've jumped into a course here. You can see all the lessons are available, and then I've just gone to this create a lesson button and select a practical assessment. So if we click into this practical assessment, this gives the demo view of what that would look like. There are a few settings up here as well, which I don't think we've quite covered off yet. You can set prerequisites for these as well. You can also select dates when this can be accessed. And this is quite interesting if you want to toggle on or off if the learner can view the completed checklist. So you might want to show them the results, you might want to turn that off. And you just have those settings available up there.
Can I just add one thing on that, if that's okay? So on that kind of area that George was just showing with the toggle of whether you want to show the learner the full assessment or not, this means you either show them the whole checklist and the feedback part that comes at the bottom. That would be if you turn it on, but if you turn it off, they just see the feedback part. So they won't be able to see the whole form, but they'll be able to still see the feedback. So that's always going to be visible to the learner.
Nice. Thanks, Lucy. No, awesome. No, that's great. And then here you can sort of toggle this on to draft or go live, and you can also view it in your different modes, similar to a lesson. I'm going to click into edit content here. And what I was doing with customer service before this, sort of taking off my EdApp pad and putting on my shoe store hat. I run a shoe store, and I want to give the best possible outcome to those customers, and I want to train my staff, but I also want to test them on how they're doing. So the EdApp lesson's been amazing, and the course, because they've taken all these different modules, but now I really want to put it to the test. Like when a potential customer walks into the store, how is that experience from the moment they walk in to the moment they kind of make a purchase? And down here, this is what I typically use. So I have a greeting. I want to make sure they're friendly and they're paying attention, have a good attitude. if they're building rapport with the customer, asking if they need help, any small talk. And also down towards part 3, it's all around engagement. So did they show empathy? Did they suggest a shoe protector? I'm always upsold to a shoe protector whenever I buy a pair of shoes. But it really shows that you're actually concerned in what they're purchasing, and it also helps with revenue growth for us as well. Again, did they say thank you? And how would they rate as the assessor, or I'm giving this to the store manager, how would they rate that customer experience out of 5? And they would usually sign it off and date it. This is so messy. We've got these everywhere. They're kind of, we're pretty seasonal as well, depending on when people need shoes. So yeah, we have a seasonal staff, they come and go. So yeah, keeping all those logs is pretty messy. And that's where I use sort of practical assessments. So you can see here, we've already covered off quite a few of the different boxes, but just to give another, I guess, example of how you could use this. So at the top here, I've used those select boxes, which Lucy just kind of ran through. Then if the store assistant, they ask if the customer needs help, I've used a select box here, where you can actually select an answer. And again, I've used pretty similar ones down here. Down the bottom here, I've used this survey type to actually create a scale of 1 to 5. As Lucy mentioned just previously, you can use this in multiple different use cases. So really don't let the form builder limit your imagination. It's just how can you get it best to work for your scenario. There are a couple of things we're missing here. One is being the assigned and the other is being date. So again, we can just quite simply drag that over, pop it in here. You can put your display in here and what the footer and the label says. And also, if you want this to be required, we can do that here as well. And then I'm also going to drag across the day because we want to date it as well. And I'm also going to make that required. Awesome. Once this is all done, as the team mentioned, just click Save Form, and that's good to go as part of your course. The other thing to do is to make sure that this is actually toggled on. So you want to set this to go live, not just in draft. You want to make it published, and then that will be visible for the learner, which just acts as another lesson. So I've got a few retail customers. I think some of them are on the call, so that's awesome. Yeah, I'd love if you wanted to pop in the chat box any use cases for practical assessments. I can already think of point of service training, customer experience training. But yeah, if you're in any other industry, just pop them in the chat box and we'd love to discuss them and see how they can, how they can best work. But that's everything on retail. I think it's a really good use case, especially as, retail is customer facing and it's very practical. But yeah, I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts and I'll pass it back to Lucy.
Awesome. Thanks, George. That was great. So the last kind of thing we were going to cover off, and feel free to pop some stuff in the chat if you guys do have any more questions, but we're just going to talk about what's coming next for practical assessments. We've just recently released the signature capability that you guys saw and the image upload capability. So in terms of the next kind of things, it's mainly going to be the capability to upload video here as well, to give you that option. If you want to do a video or an image, you can then have the option to do both. So some exciting stuff coming. And we always try and constantly improve our products and make them better. Obviously, you can see from practical assessments that stemmed from clients telling us what they wanted. So if you do have any ideas for not only this feature, but the platform in general, please feel free to reach out. You can either come through to us on live chat or support@edapp.com if you want to do it via email, and send us a message about what you'd like to see. So I can see there's a question in the chat, which is, does it mean whatever type of individual assessment, we can make use of the same form with a different setup for people who is responsible for the evaluation to use? Okay, I'm going to give this a crack. So I think what you mean is, can we use this for everyone? It doesn't matter who. Yeah, so how you've seen practical assessments work is it kind of fits within a course. So if that course is around something specifically for, let's take a restaurant example again, if that's specifically for the chefs, then that practical assessment could be used by all the chefs and anyone else who wants to take part in that. If you then had something to do with customer experience in front of house, that course and that practical assessment would be for anyone who wants to take part in that. So it doesn't really matter. You can just use the form however many times you want. You can obviously duplicate forms if you want to and add them into different courses by just copying them across. It kind of just, it's however you guys want to do it. It's pretty intuitive, and you can see how flexible it was to allow you to make up whatever form your heart's desire.
Yeah, and if I just quickly share my screen, it's probably worth showing you what the analytics would look like for a particular course as well. So if I went into the performance dashboard, went into the course tab, I'd be able to drill down into the particular lessons of that course. And so back to my haul trucks example, you can see the theory about that. You can see whether they've attended the webinar. And then if I go right down to that verification of competency here, this is where you can also click into a particular person, and then that would show up almost as a lesson type within your analytics, and you'd be able to see a particular person, whether they've completed it or not as well. It is probably worth mentioning that there won't necessarily be a best score, since there's just kind of a binary pass or fail.
Yeah, so with the score, if you pass, you get 100, and if you fail, you obviously get 0. So that's what you guys would see in terms of scoring. Hope that answered the question there. Obviously, feel free to pop any more questions in the chat. We also had a couple of questions from other clients that we've seen in the past that we just thought would be great to highlight. So George or Joyce, do you have any of those to hand?
Yeah, mine was actually on the reporting, which Joyce just answered. So that's awesome. The other one I received is this available on all plans? This new feature.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I could be. Wait, yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm getting nods. I'm pretty sure. Yes, it is available on all plans. Awesome. Another one I've had, especially for people who are using an app for multiple languages, is can we translate practical assessments? Yes, you can. You just use that AI translation tool like you do with normal courses, and it will translate the whole practical assessment for you. Obviously, we recommend just going in and checking it over, but you can translate that. Cool. I can see a couple more questions. So regarding the retail experience, customer engagement experience, besides the theoretical purposes, but in the real world, it's also relying on how to train and improve their conversations with clients. So in this example, I think what you're trying to get at is like, is there a way to see a continuous improvement? Yeah, for sure. So it would be about how you kind of like set up the practical assessments. You could do this definitely in like stages. So let's say, for example, you wanted to do this on a quarterly basis, you would just create a practical assessment for each quarter, and then you can compare results after that to see like what was their feedback from the first time, and making that the real focus for the second one, and then seeing if they improved in that on the second one. So you can make as many practical assessments as you like. I would just recommend probably structuring them in your different courses to show that the different like quarters or every kind of year that you want to do that. And we will also soon be having a new feature coming out called recurring certification, which will allow you to put an expiry date on your courses. So you could say like, I don't know, 6 months after someone has completed this course, they have to do it again. So that's where the expiration date would come in, and then they'd have to redo that, let's say, customer engagement experience one again, if they wanted to. Awesome. I hope that helps.
Yeah, I can jump in that one as well, because there's also anything else EdApp can help with on, I guess, improving like the conversation and customer experience in retail. If anyone hasn't kind of looked at our course library before, that's definitely something which I'd recommend doing. So all I've done here is when you're in your admin.edapp.com, I've clicked in this browse course library. I've just gone to retail down here, and we have lots of retail courses which are free to use. So you can import any of these into your account really easily by selecting them and importing them, and you can deploy that to your learners as well. And in tandem with this, to help improve knowledge retention, you could also like use our Brain Boost feature to help remind those learners of those kind of core topic points, and even deploy like a rapid refresh quiz as well, which are other features of EdApp. But yeah, I'd also focus on our course library.
Yeah, and just to add to that, we have recently released 3 new courses. One of them's about front desk safety, so for your PAs, anyone who kind of sits at reception, inclement weather. So we are all experiencing some lovely weather in Australia at the moment. So that's just kind of how to deal with that in your workspace and when you go to the office and stuff like that. And then the last one is food safety and document control. I mean, that title is very self-explanatory. And it's also a really good time to plug in our upcoming course with John Vilathan as well. He'll be helping us create a course on leadership. If you guys don't know who he was, there's actually a movie coming out about him soon on Amazon Prime, I believe. And he was one of those people that helped with the rescue of the Thai boys a wee while ago.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. And then we do have one more question, which I will answer now. So it was just how accurate percentage-wise is the AI translation? To be honest, it's very dependent on the language. So we often find that the more like Western languages like French, German, Italian, those kind of ones are probably in the like 80 to 85% accurate. And then the ones that are a bit more like Asia based, we probably say like 60 to 70. So a bit of a range. It's an integration with Google Translate, not so much the Google Translate you see on Google, but more of like a AI version of it. So it is a learning tool over time. So that's why we always recommend you guys to have someone who is a local speaker, just check it over so that it makes sure it makes sense. But it definitely takes a lot of the legwork off for you guys.